MCGaccountability.com.
Mike, let's transition that because this is your authoritarian PowerPoint.
Okay.
Love brings protection.
Mm-hmm.
And I've shared with you, man, I've texted you multiple times. I've handed out your information to several people, and everybody's really gung-ho about getting on to the realms of safety, especially in churches and some of their schools. A lot of churches have schools. How do they move into the direction of the proper channels of knowing what to do? And they're all gung-ho about it. You hand out the information, then it's crickets. And it's like, look, there are the authorities in this. Did you know about this? I don't know if it went into law or it's going into law. Let's say you have 5 guys in your church and you get them together and you say, hey, you're going to carry guns. That is now classified as a formed militia, a organized militia. You cannot do that.
Didn't know that.
You have to.
In Texas?
You have to have security, like professional security, but it's not to say people in your church can't carry.
Right.
You can't organize it.
Right. Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was brought in by a guy who helps out with a lot of security at our church.
Well, whoever probably put that law into place probably has a security company.
It was Dan Crenshaw.
Was it?
No. I'm just.
Oh, I was like,
I'm going to edit that. I was
okay.
just joking.
No.
Dang it! I got to quit moving that shoulder.
No, I wasn't aware of that, man. Yeah, the problem is that I'm super frustrated with not only churches but schools. People think that because you're a church or because you're a school and you work off taxpayer dollars or donations that things should just be free. My time is not free. My team's time is not free. We have a team of 33 in 15 states. Is everybody active? No. But we have 600 plus years of practical, not theoretical experience. I mean, boots on the ground, doing this stuff for real, all 7 continents, over 200 countries, multiple war zones. That doesn't come free. Now, there's some concessions that we will give to people, but it's just like, I've gotten to where, like, when I started, I would go through the whole process, listen to people, let them give me the whole song and dance, what their needs are, and that's fine. We still do that. But I've gotten to where now I ask up front, do you have budget for this? And if the answer is no, we have solutions for you to find budget. There are tons of grants out there that are available to religious organizations and educational institutions. But then you have some religious institutions that say, hey, I don't want to take any federal money because I don't want to be bound by any federal rules regarding, LGBTQ, any of that stuff. Well, here's the deal. That's not a concern. You should, I mean, I understand someone's hesitation, but that's the federal government's not going to give you $150,000 to, increase your situational awareness or security presence or footprint at your church and then come back and say, hey, well, you don't support LGBTQ. We're going to take that money back. That's never happened. Right. And so I do have customers that are concerned with that. And we, all we can tell them is, look, that's never happened. The grant writing company that we use and we partnered with has been doing this for 15 years. They have a 95% success rate at getting grant funds for churches, for municipalities, for public schools, private schools. It's $5,000 flat rate. I make zero money on it. That's a service that we offer to our clients. They have to pay the $5,000, and our grant writing company works with them direct. They file the grant based upon their needs and the assessment that we've done, and the assessment that the grant writing company's done. And like I said, 95% success rate. We worked with a couple of religious institutions that have applied, and they've gotten their money, and we've done the work, and they've been happy. But the problem is that there's a lot of people, whether they be in churches or whether they be in schools, that think that they can do what we do.
Oh, this is what I was going to say. M6 Global, let's say you have them come. You come to Huffman Church, I'm not going to tell you my needs. I want you to evaluate, and you look at me because this is what you do, and say, here's your areas.
Unbiased, third party. There's no biases injected there, right? We come in completely blind and look at it through our lens as professionals. And, too many times we have clients that still want to dictate what they think they need when they don't need it at all, and so it's frustrating, man. Or you have clients that you work with that you've gone out, you've gotten money for them, and they haven't spent a single penny. They don't want to spend a single penny. They think that they can do it themselves, or they think that they can do it cheaper. And I always tell people all the time, look, we are not the cheapest. If you want cheap, don't even call me. And I'm not saying that we're the most expensive. We're not the most expensive. We're kind of lie somewhere in the middle, right? And we're very reasonable. We're willing to give some concessions. But if you want cheap, don't call me. And if you don't have a budget and you're not willing to spend the money to allow us to help write grants, don't call me. That's just bottom line. That's the truth. I tell people all the time, if you don't have $5,000 to write a grant to get $50,000 or $150,000, $200,000, $750,000, some of these grants are up to almost $1 million. If you don't even have $5,000, what are you doing? Every entity should have at least $5,000 to spend to receive $150,000 to $750,000 on some of these grants.
Pretty good return rate.
Pretty good return rate, especially at 95% success rate, right? And guess what? That $5,000 that you spent, you can write that back into the bond for reimbursement. So what do you have to lose? And guess what we do? If you're not awarded the grant the first year, we file it again the second year for no additional charge. What are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Are you waiting for God's intervention to think that these things can't happen at your institution, at your facility, at your church?
The news yesterday, the guy had the machetes and the knives, and thankfully he was caught by the FBI. He was heading to religious organizations to kill people.
I'm not mocking God, but God's not going to divinely intervene in everything, right? You can be a victim, because you're a church. Because of what's going on in our country with the LGBTQ community. Look at the last couple shootings at religious installations. Right. Let's look at one in particular that comes to mind, or institutions, I guess I should say, or facilities. Look at Covenant Christian in Tennessee, right? Transgender, LGBTQ community motivated. There was a reason why they did not allow that manifesto to be released immediately, because there was a connection there. That individual who committed those crimes went to that school, had a grievance, had a cross to bear, no pun intended. But, you can be a victim. And if you're not preparing for it, you're not protecting your flock. Stop being ignorant.
Yeah.
Churches and schools, I've been saying this for many years now. Churches and schools in places like that, grocery stores, movie theaters, places which used to be off limits to violence, are now targets because of their soft security stature. And if you as a pastor are not preparing for that and don't have a plan, you're not protecting your flock. You're not upholding your oath and your obligation to your congregation or to your church. This is not a fear tactic. This is reality, right? So it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see that people just they still have this attitude that it can't happen here.
And people that have never been through any type of trauma. And speaking with somebody that was choosing to get a weapon, then they ended up going out, like a lot of people do, and buying like 10 different, weapons. Mm-hmm. I said, you need to become proficient with the one before. You don't even know how to take it apart. You don't know how to clean it. And if you're an appendix carry and it gets sweat on every single day, you don't know what you're doing. But in looking at if you don't plan and you don't have something set in place, it's like people that have never been robbed, and then you try to explain to them, you need to keep your head on a swivel. Well, why? Because I've had somebody walk up on me.
Yeah.
I've had somebody try to rob me. So it changes how you look at things.
Dude, it's people think that it can't happen to them. You know, situational awareness is probably your best defense. You know, you walk out of the grocery store, get your head out of that phone, right? You know, you're walking to your vehicle in a you know, not a well lit parking lot at night, leaving the mall. Get your head up.
Already have your keys in your hand too.
Have your keys in your hand. Be prepped, right? Those are the things that are going to at least give you a chance at survival, right? But there's so many people that just don't. I mean, I'm an observer, right? I love observing. I like going to like the mall, and I like going to the mall or you know, just public areas where there's mass gatherings, and just watching people. And even one of the things that I do, my wife, she gets so frustrated with me because I think about these things, but like even law enforcement officers. Oh, I'm sorry. Even law enforcement officers. Sorry. Even law enforcement officers, right? Just the lack of situational awareness, man. I watch Cops a lot, not the show, but I watch real police officers in life, in real life, and I watch them to see like their body positioning, how they blade themselves. Is their weapon side, you know, open to the public? Are they taking any preventative measures to prevent someone from grabbing that weapon? And, you know, the thing is, most police officers would go, well, no one would ever try that. BS. Yeah, I disagree with that. You know, you take a guy like me, I can probably, well, not probably, 9 times out of 10, if you give me access to that body or that weapon side of your body, I can get that gun out of that holster before you even know it, you know. I walked into Sam's the other day. Walked in with my wife. She knew where I was going. She knows me so well. We walked in, and I looked up, and there was a female officer leaning on some televisions, and she's on her phone, gun side wide open to the public. And right when everybody was walking through, all these people coming through, and she's got her head on her phone. And I looked, and my wife goes, yeah, I know. And I was like, what? She's like, I know you can get her gun. And I was like, yeah, I can. You know, so people need to be, you know, whether it be law enforcement or whether it be individuals that carry a weapon, they really need to be consciously aware of their surroundings. You know, I had this debate, not necessarily a debate, but I have this conversation with people all the time. It's like, you hear people talk about, well, I have an LTC. I have a license to carry. Great. In the state of Texas, you don't even need an LTC. You need it for liability reasons. I would encourage people to get it. But, you know, it's constitutional carry in the state. People always say, well, you know, I have a license to carry, or I'm constitutionally carrying. Okay. When's the last time you fired that weapon? Oh, it's been 6-8 months. Okay.
When's the last time you practiced pulling your shirt up and taking it out?
That's the biggest issue. And then I follow it up with that same question. When you qualified with that weapon, did you draw from the holster? No, you can't draw from the holster. It won't let you. Okay. Have you ever practiced drawing from the holster and getting rounds down range on target effectively in a short period of time? No. Okay. You ever had to wrestle with someone who was trying to take your weapon? No. You ever been on your back and had to guard your weapon from someone taking it from you? Being able to defend yourself, creating time and distance? No. So essentially you're a liability at this point. You know, that's why I disagree with states that are moving to legislate, you know, teachers being able to carry weapons. And, you know, that's another politically divisive debate. You go talk to
heated both sides.
Yeah. You go talk to Republicans. Oh yeah, teachers should be carrying weapons. You know, we got the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Well, what about a good guy who's not
Training.
well trained
Right.
with a gun?
Well, in Texas,
know?
that Texas church shooting 3 years ago, the guy,
Oh,
he
yes.
fumbled his gun when he was.
the security officer.
Yeah,
You know
he-
why? He got smoked. He was dead on his feet. You know why? Because he never practiced drawing that gun from his holster and putting rounds on target. It's unfortunate that man had to die because he had the jump on him, but he couldn't get his weapon out of his holster, and he died right there on his feet. You know, and so, you know, this ideology or this myth that just because I have a gun means that I'm good
No.
is absolutely bullshit, because you know what? You're shooting and you're qualifying when you get that LTC from a static environment. You're sitting behind, you know, or in a bay and you're shooting a static target. You're not increasing your heart rate. You're not, you know, forcing your body to have those physiological responses that happen in a gunfight that would cause you to lose dexterity in your hands, to you know, have tunnel vision. There's a reason why law enforcement officers who are more trained than the average citizen only have like a 46%, you know, marksmanship or accuracy rating.
That's scary.
It's scary, right?
Very scary.
So now we want to take, you know, a third grade teacher, Miss Johnson, who's, you know, 5'0" like my wife. Love you. I like that you're short. Hey man, I gotta recover from that.
There you
but
go.
You want to take Miss Johnson, who's 5'0", who doesn't manipulate a weapon often at all, but took an 8-hour course and think that she's proficient, or in a 16-hour course, or even a 40-hour course. You know, I'm sorry, you have to have some type of resistance. You know, let me or let you get into a room with Miss Johnson and see if she can, you know, effectively. And I don't want to say, let's say Mr. Johnson, because I know that I may catch some slack because, well, why is it a woman? Okay, let's say Mr. Johnson, who never manipulates a weapon, right? Who doesn't train from the holster, who doesn't train under pressure, you know, with his physiological responses are all over the place. I guarantee you and I are going to get that gun from Mr. Johnson, and we're probably going to beat him to death with it, right? But yet we have the Republican Party and Republican governors throughout the United States passing legislation to arm teachers at will. It's the stupidest idea ever. It's like they've completely given up on the fact that in all of these cases, we know who these kids are that want to kill themselves or someone else, but let's disregard those 7 signs of pre-attack behavior, and let's just arm teachers and say, let's just kill these kids if they present a weapon. How about let's intervene in their lives before they want to harm themselves or others? Let's focus our attention on that. All the money that you're putting into arming teachers, let's take those monies and let's reallocate those to behavioral health programs, to early warning and interventions.
People that don't believe in mental health issues, if you still think it's a cop-out,
come on, man,
you have part of the mental health issue.
Yeah, you are part of the problem.
You are part of the problem.
You know, but it goes back to the political divisiveness of this country. You know, why is it that red states are wanting to arm teachers at will? It's because of politics. You know, listen, I'm a massive Second Amendment advocate. I probably have, I don't know, dozens of weapons. I don't even know how many weapons I have. I've got some really nice ones. But just because I own weapons doesn't, you know, and I'm different, you know, than just the average person, but doesn't mean that I should just be able to carry a weapon, you know, in a school. Right? I believe in the Constitution. I believe that every American has a right to own and possess a weapon. I have no problem with constitutional carry. That's our right as Americans. But when you take unqualified, untrained people, you put them in a school setting and you give them the responsibility to take a life when that's not their job, these people don't have the same mindset that I have or people like me have. You know, I have no problem harming someone who's harming someone else. I have no problem with that. I'll go home and eat a sandwich and take a nap and be fine with it. But what they're not understanding is that teachers by nature are nurturers. They're educators. They form relationships and bonds that are everlasting with these kids. They're truly the nation's national treasure, is those who educate our kids. And now you've taken a weapon and you've put it in their hand, a lethal weapon, and you've asked them to kill a kid who may be just having a bad day, who you've missed all the signs and symptoms for the last maybe possibly decade, right? And then we want to just kill that kid. Listen, I'm not saying at that point you got to do what you got to do, right? I'm not
Absolutely,
saying that I'm not saying don't shoot that kid. I'm just saying that these individuals possibly have an emotional connection with these kids. It's not easy to harm someone. It's not. Most of these teachers wouldn't get in a fist fight with these kids. We want them to be able to shoot them now? Come on, man. Let's be realistic.
Never thought about it like that. Yeah.
I mean, think about it. I remember when I was executive director of security at the school district that I was at, we hired a bunch of individuals to be what we called campus safety monitors, added a bunch of different responsibilities. Basically, they're the eyes and the ears of the campus. And I came up with my own interview questions. And one of them was debatable, or it was controversial. Not debatable, but controversial. Even my own staff is like, "Man, you really want to ask them that?" Yeah, I do. I want to know what their response is going to be. And so one of the questions that I asked them was that, and I would base it would turn into a scenario, is that, you have a kid who's, significantly larger than you, let's say a junior or senior in high school. They're being defiant. You're called down to escort them to the office. While you're doing that, the kid becomes, verbally assaultive. You try to de-escalate that. They become physically assaultive. They smack you. You fall to the ground. What do? Well, I get on my radio. You can't get on your radio. Your radio's 15 feet from you. Well, I try to get my radio. You can't do that. The kid's now on top of you and pounding you into submission or whatever, doing whatever they want with you.
We just saw that on the national news 2 months ago.
It happens.
It happens.
Right? What do you do? What do you mean? Do you fight back? Well, policy says that I'm not supposed to. Okay, but do you hit that child that is physically assaulting you at this point? The ones that answered no, I didn't hire them. You know why? Because everybody has a basic human right to defend themselves, regardless of policy. Right? I need to know if you're going to tell me that policy is going to supersede your basic human right to defend yourself, I don't want you.
And
not in that position.
Policy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'll deal with policy, but I'll be alive to deal with it. Right? It is what it is. I don't think any jury in the country would convict that person who was literally defending themselves. Right? And so I turned away many, and I would tell them, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to hire you. You have a basic human right to defend yourself, regardless of policy." I'm not encouraging violence against students. I'm wanting to see where your brain is at, if you're the right fit for this job, because guess what? That happens, and it has happened. And teachers on a day-to-day basis are assaulted verbally and physically. And guess what? We make excuses for this behavior. And it's not right. And that's why we're seeing a mass exodus of teachers leaving the industry, is because
by the
droves. We are not supporting them as a society. We're not supporting them as superintendents. We're not supporting them as school board members. And I used to be a school board member, And what I'm telling people is get your head out of your ass. Stop being so soft, right? You have a responsibility to direct the next generation of Americans. Not saying that we go out and we just be, just complete, I don't even know the term, but I'm not saying we go out and we just hit them with a heavy hand all the time, because there has to be a nurturing hand also. But you've got to get out of this mindset. This generation of kids that we have now, it's a different level, man. They're being built on a different platform.
When they're being attacked or somebody else is being attacked, they want to take their phone out and record it.
Yeah, they think this stuff's fun. right? We have a society that has degraded to the point where people like George Floyd, all right? Let's talk about George Floyd. George Floyd was the individual in Minnesota that was that died in police custody on behalf of the Minnesota Police Department, right? Derek Chauvin was the officer that was filmed with his knee in his neck, essentially asphyxiating him. What we now know is that might not have actually been the final cause of death.
It sure didn't help.
And that's what I'm saying, right? Derek Chauvin, right? Good, bad, and different. Perception is everything, right? We had multiple spectators sit there and watch this man on the ground talk about how he couldn't breathe, and this insensitive police officer with his knee in his neck just looked like he didn't care, like he could have been eating a sandwich.
Staring
right into the camera. I will tell you, and people say, well, Mike, you can Monday morning quarterback. You can say you would have done that. If anybody knows me, they know what I would have done. There is no way I would have sat there, recorded, and done nothing. I would have physically removed Derek Chauvin, and I would have taken that ride to the police station for assault on a police officer. That wasn't right. It wasn't right. And regardless of how much drugs he had in his system, because trust me, I do believe that had a large part to do with his death. Listen, George Floyd is not a victim in this case. He just happened to be the individual that was involved.
Yeah.
Now, is he a victim because he died? Yes, but was that because of solely Derek Chauvin's actions, or was it due to a combination of both? Right? I think it was a combination of both, and I think that has been scientifically proven now. But what I'm getting at is that we have a society who has become so insensitive and so just disregarding human life that during that particular moment they sat and they thought the best thing for them to do was just simply record. And I know that I'll catch slack from a lot of law enforcement officers, but those officers know, and I know that and I'm a certified defensive tactics instructor. You always put that person in the position of disadvantage, right? It didn't need to be what he was doing at that time. It didn't need to be him flat on his stomach, hands behind his back, handcuffed, with him applying pressure to his neck. It didn't need to be that. He could have simply...
And the other 5.
And doing nothing. He could have simply just put him on his rear end, leaned him up, put him up against the car, and just stood over him, still in a position of disadvantage. You have a handcuffed subject who is now sitting upright, no pressure being applied to him, and he's still in a position of disadvantage. He probably would have died from the overdose. Right? And guess what? We would have never known George Floyd's name. So, for those law enforcement officers that want to continue to defend it, well, that was an approved tactic. Well, just because it's approved doesn't mean it was the right thing to do. It wasn't the right thing to do. Put him in a position of disadvantage. Perception means a lot, right? So, our society is sick, man. I get asked all the time, do we have a gun problem in the United States, or do we have a mental health problem? The answer is both.
And the mental health is not reliant just on the school. Parents have to have hand. And hey, let's take a break and let's come back to that.
Yeah, parents
they have to have a hand